Okay, so we're going to begin a simple animation inside Photoshop. And to do that, we need to create a new document. So I'm just going to reach over here and hit Create New. That will load and give me the option to create a new document. Again, I recommend just doing the 1920 by 1080. And again, we can get at that through Film and Video if it's not something you have already loaded in your recents. Okay, I'm going to leave the background white on this one. I'm going to hit Create. And when that opens up, it will likely look like this. You won't have your timeline open yet, so it's going to look like this. So with that open, we do want to go and open up our timeline. And when I click on that, you'll notice it now gives me down at the bottom a place that says Create Frame Animation, or if I click the caret, it'll also say Create Video Timeline. We'll come back to creating the video timeline later, but for now we want this Create Frame Animation. And when I click on that, that would start my cells and be able to begin. Before I do that though, I want to go in and we're just going to make a simple slow in, slow out moving a box. So I'm just going to grab my rectangle tool and I'm going to come over to the over to my window, and I'm just going to hold down on the Shift key and make a perfect box. Okay? Now what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to move that with using about 10 frames. Okay, so about 10 boxes is what we're going to use to move that across the screen. And this is how we do that. Okay, so I just want to duplicate this rectangle. So all I've done is come over to the right. I'm going to right click on that layer and I'm going to go up to Duplicate Layer. That'll open up another window, and under that window I'm just simply going to name this Rectangle 2 because I want to start the progression of moving it down the line. Then I'm going to come back up here, grab my Move tool, and I'm just going to simply shift over that second box. And I'm just going to move it a little bit. Now it'll look like one box, but if we toggle one off, you'll notice that they're still there. Okay. Now again, I'm just going to go back in and duplicate that layer again. I'm going to name this one Rectangle 3 because we're third one over here. I'm going to move it over a little bit more. Okay. Then again, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go Duplicate Layer. I'm going to call this one Rectangle 4 because it's the fourth one in the progression. I'm going to move it over even a little bit more, right? So I'm going to start moving down the line. Then I'm going to reduplicate again. Call it 5. Click OK. Move that one even more. Okay, so on this, now I'm starting to move it a little bit more on that on the middle frames because we don't need those to be quite as lined up for that motion to carry across, and we're doing a slow in and a slow out on this. So again, Rectangle 6, move that one over quite a bit, Duplicate Layer, call that Rectangle 7, move that over quite a bit here, so we're moving it over, Duplicate Layer, call this one 8. Now we're starting the slow down, so this one's not going to move as much. And then 9, going to Duplicate Layer, call that 9, right? And again, move that over just a little bit because we're slowing at this point, right? Slow in, slow out. And again, I'm going to call that Rectangle 10 and then move it over just a little. So now we have our 10 rectangles. And now what we want to do is we want to start animating those. Okay, so there's a couple ways we can do this, but that's one of the easiest ways to be able to animate that box moving across the screen. I'll show you another way, but it won't allow for an ease in and an ease out. So I'll show you that here in just a second after we finish this animation. Now, what I want to do is I want to come down to the bottom and I want to hit Create Frame Animation. When you do that, you'll notice it gives us a cell. All of our layers are now turned on in that cell. We don't want that. So we want to bounce back over here to the right in our layers palette and start turning off every layer but the very first one. Okay. So then now we only have that one in our timeline. Okay. We're going to come back and change the seconds here in a minute. And I'll show you that in just one second. So then what we want to do is we want to go here and make a new frame. So that gives us a new cell, and then we're going to turn off the eyeball from the first and go to the second. Again, a good reason why you might number these so that then you know which ones you're turning off in what order. Okay, so then we'll come back in here, and now these two will be different, and then we'll go to the next one. We'll create another cell, bounce back over, eyeball off of the second, eyeball on the third. New cell, eyeball off of the third, on the fourth. So on and so forth. So you just keep working down the line. And the last one. Now, if you look down here, all of them are 0 seconds. But if I play this, and I'll just hit play down here, there it goes. It slides across. Got a quick ease in, quick ease out. Now, I want to change that up just a little bit because it's a little fast. So I'm going to click down here on this seconds. And I want this first one to hold for like a half a second. And I want that last one to also hold for a half a second. So let's come back up and let's see what that looks like. Right there the box goes. Slow in, slow out. So you can see how that slow ramps the speed up, moves across the screen, and then we slow down before we stop. Now, if we added more frames in there, obviously that would make it a little bit slower of an ease coming in or an ease out if we wanted to. But just very quickly with 10 frames, 10 rectangles, we can go in and change things up. Now, if that didn't move exactly the way you wanted it to, you could come in and change your time down to like 0.1 seconds. We could do that on multiple if we selected them and go to 0.1, and you'll notice those all change down there at the bottom. And then when I hit play, it now moves that box just a little bit slower. And all that will just depend on what you're trying to do with your animation. Okay. Now again, after you're done with that, you can just hit save. We would just simply go up under File, we would go to Save, and we would save that out. Okay. So then we're ready to do an export on this. So we want to take this animation and we want to be able to save it out as either a video file or as a GIF. I don't care which one on this particular project you do. We're either going to do Save for Web, which will open up this, and I'm going to do this in both instances. You'll notice that it says GIF up here, and then we can drop down. We could loop it forever. So here there are looping options, or we could have it just loop one time, or we could do an other. I'm going to leave it to loop forever just so we can see it. Then when we're done with that, we're going to click Save. We could actually play this, and if we were zoomed out a little bit on this particular picture, we could see our box and we could actually play it, and there you'll see it's actually looping for me. I'm going to hit Save, and when you hit Save, it's going to ask you to name it, and you're just going to name it your name and then like Photoshop box. So your name Photoshop box, right? And then I'm just going to save mine. You'll save yours to the Project HD. Since I'm on my laptop, I don't have that, so I'm just going to drop it where I know I can come back to it. Click Save. There it goes. And then we can always get back in and access that under the desktop. There it is. If I hit spacebar, it'll preview, and there's my GIF. Okay, so I can make that come out and play. Now, the other thing that I can do is I can go File, Export, and I can drop down to Render Video. So if you're going to take something out of Photoshop and put it into either YouTube or into Premiere, then we're going to come in and change this. We would likely want a QuickTime. If we're going straight to YouTube and we don't care about quality, H.264 will be fine. But if you're trying to take it into Adobe Premiere, I would recommend saving it out as QuickTime. And again, you're going to want to come up here and name it. And you're going to name that your name and Photoshop box. And again, you want to make sure that you're going to the proper folder. So you're going to do Select Folder, Project HD, and go into yours. And again, my computer right here does not have Project HD. This is my laptop. And then you're just going to choose where it goes, right? So you're going to want to make sure that this says Project HD and then your name for the folder, right? So make sure that that says that, okay? So then we're just going to hit Render. That will render it out. You'll notice the little twirling dots there, and then it's gone that quick. And if I drop down to my Finder window, there it is. There's my box. and I could go in and be able to play that through QuickTime. Now it's not rendered out properly. I've got a mistake somewhere, but if I converted it over really quickly, there's my box moving. Okay, and there it goes. It slides across the screen. So just that simple, you can get in and create a very simple animation using Adobe Photoshop, the timeline option, and the create frame animation. So now it's your job to go in, take this tutorial, having watched it, and move on and go to create your own box with a slow in and slow out. Honestly, you could do anything other than a box if you wanted to, but for ease of use, I would recommend just starting with a box.